It is perhaps the most iconic vessel in human history, despite never having been definitively found. A colossal ark, built at the command of God, designed to save one righteous family and pairs of every living creature from a world-drowning flood. Noah's Ark. The story resonates across cultures and millennia, a tale of divine judgment, unwavering faith, and the ultimate second chance. For billions, it is sacred history, the literal account of humanity's near extinction and miraculous survival. But for others, it's a legend, a powerful myth rich in symbolism, but ultimately just a story. So, what is the truth? Was there a global flood that wiped the slate clean? Did one man truly build a vessel large enough to house the entire animal kingdom? And most tantalizingly, does the ark itself or evidence of its existence lie hidden somewhere, waiting to be discovered? Today, we put on the hat of the historical investigator. We set aside preconceived notions and follow the clues. We'll examine the biblical blueprint, scour the alleged landing sites, compare the story to eerily similar legends from civilizations that never knew Noah, and critically analyze the scientific feasibility of it all. This isn't about proving or disproving faith. This is about investigation. We're on the trail of one of history's greatest mysteries. Is Noah's Ark a tangible piece of our past, buried under rock and ice? Or does it reside solely in the realm of powerful, enduring legend? Let the investigation begin. Our investigation starts, as it must, with the primary source, the Book of Genesis, chapters 6 through 9. The account is detailed, specific, and forms the bedrock of the entire mystery. The premise is stark. God sees a world consumed by wickedness and violence. Regretting creation, he decides to cleanse the earth with a catastrophic flood. But one man, Noah, finds favor in God's eyes. He is described as righteous, blameless, and walking faithfully with God. Noah is given a divine commission of staggering proportions. Genesis 6:14 through 16. So make yourself an ark of cypress wood, or gopher wood. Make rooms in it and coat it with pitch inside and out. This is how you are to build it. The ark is to be 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, and 30 cubits high. Make a roof for it, leaving below the roof an opening 1 cubit high all around. Put a door in the side of the ark and make lower, middle, and upper decks. These aren't vague instructions. They are specific architectural plans. Using the standard cubit measurement of roughly 18 inches, this translates to a vessel approximately 450 feet long, 75 feet wide, and 45 feet high. A massive, 3-decked rectangular box coated in pitch for waterproofing. The cargo? Even more specific. Noah, his wife, his 3 sons and their wives. And then the zoological challenge. Genesis 6:19 through 20. You are to bring into the ark 2 of all living creatures, male and female, to keep them alive with you. 2 of every kind of bird, of every kind of animal, and of every kind of creature that moves along the ground will come to you to be kept alive. 7 pairs of ritually clean animals and birds were also included. The mission to preserve life through the coming deluge. The narrative continues with the flood itself. 40 days and nights of rain, waters rising to cover the highest mountains, all life outside the ark perishing. After 150 days, the waters begin to recede. And then the crucial geographical clue, Genesis 8:4. And on the 17th day of the 7th month, the ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat.
After the flood, Noah sends out birds to test the waters. A raven, then a dove. When the dove returns with an olive leaf, hope is rekindled. Finally, the earth is dry. Noah, his family, and the animals disembark. God makes a covenant, symbolized by the rainbow, promising never again to destroy all life with a flood. From an investigative standpoint, the Genesis account provides several key, potentially verifiable claims. A specific vessel, built of gopher wood, a term debated, possibly cypress or a resinous wood, coated in pitch for waterproofing, with precise dimensions. A specific location, the ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. A specific event, a flood of global proportions covering the highest mountains. A specific outcome, the survival of Noah's family and representative pairs of all terrestrial, air-breathing animals. These claims form the basis of our search. Can we find physical evidence of the ark, particularly in the Ararat region? Is there geological evidence of a global flood? And are the logistical challenges of building and housing such a menagerie scientifically plausible?
For centuries, the phrase Mountains of Ararat has drawn explorers, adventurers, and believers like a siren's call. Mount Ararat, a dormant volcanic massif in eastern Turkey near the borders of Armenia and Iran, has become the focal point in the physical search for Noah's Ark. Reports of sightings, though often anecdotal, stretch back through history. The ancient historian Josephus mentioned remnants of the ark being visible. Marco Polo, in the 13th century, wrote of its presence on the mountain, though it's unclear if he saw it himself. The modern era of ark hunting truly began in the 20th century. Stories emerged of Russian pilots spotting a large barge-like structure during World War I, though official records are non-existent. The Cold War added another layer of intrigue. U-2 spy planes and reconnaissance satellites captured images of the mountain, including a mysterious dark shape high on the slopes known as the Ararat Anomaly. These classified images fueled speculation for decades until they were eventually declassified. Numerous expeditions, often led by Christian groups and explorers, have braved the treacherous conditions of Ararat, extreme altitudes, glaciers, unpredictable weather, and geopolitical instability, searching for definitive proof. What have they found? The evidence remains tantalizing but ultimately inconclusive. The Ararat Anomaly. High-resolution satellite imagery and ground analysis strongly suggest the anomaly is a natural rock formation, possibly a lava flow or glacial feature whose shape coincidentally resembles a boat under specific snow and shadow conditions. Wood fragments. Various expeditions have returned with pieces of wood found high on the mountain. Some pieces have been carbon dated, yielding wildly different ages. Some only centuries old, others seemingly thousands. Critically, some petrified wood samples turned out to be volcanic rock rich in minerals. Wood can be preserved in ice, but finding 4,500-year-old gopher wood structurally intact after millennia of glacial movement and volcanic activity is a monumental challenge. No sample has been universally accepted by the scientific community as definitively from the ark. Boat-shaped formations. Several large, intriguing rock formations around the Ararat region, most famously the Durupunar site, popularized by Ron Wyatt, have been claimed as the fossilized remains of the ark. However, geological surveys have concluded these are natural formations, likely synclines, folded rock layers, or mud flows, common in the area's geology. The scientific skepticism. From a purely geological and archaeological standpoint, the case for the ark on Ararat is weak. Lack of peer-reviewed evidence. No discovery has withstood rigorous scientific scrutiny or been published in mainstream archaeological journals. Much of the evidence is promoted through specific religious or exploration groups.
Geological explanations. The features cited as evidence, anomalies, boat shapes, have plausible natural explanations consistent with the mountain's volcanic and glacial history. Preservation challenges. Wood preservation over 4,500 years in such a dynamic, high-altitude environment is extremely unlikely, especially for a structure subject to immense flooding and subsequent geological shifts. Glaciers, in particular, are powerful forces of erosion, not preservation. The mountains, plural. Genesis says mountains, plural of Ararat, referring to the ancient kingdom of Urartu, a vast region. Pinpointing one specific peak might be a modern misinterpretation. Other mountains in the region, like Mount Kudi or sites in Iran, have also been proposed, but face similar evidentiary challenges. The search for the physical ark on Ararat remains a compelling story of faith and perseverance. But after decades of searching, no smoking gun has been found. The mountain guards its secrets well, perhaps because the secret is that there is no ark to be found there.
If the physical evidence for the ark is elusive, what about the flood itself? The Genesis account describes a global deluge covering all the high mountains under the entire heavens. Is there geological or historical evidence for such an event? And perhaps more intriguingly, why do we find echoes of this story scattered across the globe? From a scientific perspective, the concept of a single worldwide flood that covered Mount Everest faces insurmountable obstacles. Where did the water come from? The volume of water required is staggering, far exceeding all the water in our oceans, atmosphere, and ice caps combined. Genesis speaks of springs of the great deep bursting forth and floodgates of the heavens opening, but geology finds no evidence of such a sudden, massive release and subsequent disappearance of water. Lack of geological evidence. A global flood should have left a distinct, uniform sedimentary layer worldwide. No such layer exists. Geological strata show a complex history of regional floods, sea level changes, and tectonic activity over millions of years, not a single recent global event. Fossil record. The fossil record shows a gradual succession of life forms over vast eons, contradicting the idea of all species coexisting and being wiped out simultaneously, then repopulating from a single point, Ararat. Biodiversity. How did animals like kangaroos, Australia, or penguins, Antarctica, get from Ararat back to their unique habitats without leaving fossil evidence along the way? While many creationist geologists propose alternative models, mainstream science finds no credible evidence for a global flood within the last few thousand years. However, the investigation takes a fascinating turn when we look at mythology. The story of a catastrophic flood sent by divine powers to punish humanity, with a chosen few surviving on a vessel, is not unique to the Bible. It is one of the most universal archetypes in human storytelling, found in hundreds of cultures across every inhabited continent, many of which had no contact with each other. Consider these striking parallels. Mesopotamia, the Epic of Gilgamesh, written centuries before the Genesis account was likely finalized. This tells of the god sending a flood. The god Ea warns Utnapishtim, instructing him to build a massive boat coated with pitch and bring aboard his family, craftsmen, and the seed of all living things. The flood lasts for 6 days and nights. The boat lands on a mountain, Mount Nishir. Utnapishtim sends out a dove, a swallow, and a raven to check for dry land. The similarities to the Noah story are undeniable. Ancient Greece, Zeus, angered by humanity's wickedness, sends a flood. The titan Prometheus warns his son Deucalion, who builds a chest, an ark, with his wife Pyrrha. They float for 9 days and nights before landing on Mount Parnassus. Hinduism, the fish avatar Matsya warns the sage Manu of an impending flood. He instructs Manu to build a large boat and bring aboard his family, the 7 sages, and seeds of all plants and pairs of animals. Matsya, as a fish, guides the boat, which eventually lands on a mountaintop. Indigenous Americas, countless tribes, from the Aztecs and Maya in Mesoamerica to the Hopi and Ojibwe in North America have traditions of a world-destroying flood from which only a few ancestors survived, often by floating in a vessel or climbing a high mountain. How do we explain this near-universal narrative? Several theories exist. Shared historical event. Could all these myths be fragmented memories of a single global flood as the Bible suggests? While geology refutes a near-global flood, some speculate about much older cataclysmic events in prehistory. Regional catastrophes. Perhaps the myths stem from numerous devastating regional floods that were interpreted as world-ending by the cultures experiencing them. The Black Sea deluge hypothesis, for example, suggests a rapid flooding of the Black Sea basin around 7,500 years ago could have displaced many peoples and inspired Mesopotamian flood stories. Massive river floods, tsunamis, or post-Ice Age sea level rises could have had similar impacts elsewhere. Psychological archetype. Carl Jung might argue the Great Flood is a universal archetype embedded in the human collective unconscious, a symbol of destruction, purification, and rebirth that resonates deeply across cultures, regardless of historical events. Or diffusion. Stories travel. Perhaps an originating flood myth, likely Mesopotamian given its age, spread and adapted as cultures interacted over millennia. Regardless of the explanation, the ubiquity of flood myths adds a compelling layer to our investigation. While not proof of the Genesis account itself, it suggests that the idea of a world-altering flood and miraculous survival is deeply ingrained in human experience and memory, possibly rooted in real, terrifying local events that felt like the end of the world.
Let's return to the vessel itself. Even if we grant a flood, regional or otherwise, and a need for survival, could Noah have actually built and operated the ark as described? Here, the investigation runs into severe logistical and scientific challenges. The ark's dimensions, approximately 450 by 75 by 45 feet, describe a vessel with a volume roughly equivalent to 500 standard railroad stock cars. It's enormous. Construction. Building such a massive wooden structure would require advanced engineering knowledge, vast resources, lumber, pitch, and a huge labor force. Genesis portrays Noah and his 3 sons building it, seemingly over decades. Is this feasible with ancient technology? While large wooden ships were eventually built, for example, Greek triremes, Chinese treasure ships, the ark predates most known examples of such large-scale shipbuilding by millennia. Finding and processing enough gopher wood and pitch would itself be a colossal task. Seaworthiness. The ark is described as a rectangular box, tebach in Hebrew, the same word used for Moses' basket, not a streamlined ship. While its proportions, a 6-to-1 length-to-width ratio, are surprisingly stable according to some modern analyses, its ability to withstand the tumultuous waters of a global flood, tsunamis, massive waves, without sophisticated framing, keels, or steering is highly questionable. It was designed to float, not navigate. Structural integrity. The stresses on a wooden vessel of that size, tossed by unprecedented floodwaters, would be immense, preventing leaks, managing torsion, and simply keeping it from breaking apart would be an engineering feat bordering on the miraculous. While proponents argue for divine assistance or lost ancient technologies, from a purely historical engineering perspective, building the ark as described presents monumental challenges. The greater challenge lies in the cargo. Housing, feeding, and caring for representatives of every living creature for potentially over a year is a biological and logistical problem of staggering complexity. The sheer numbers. How many kinds are there? Estimates vary wildly. Literal interpretations often focus on biblical kinds, broader than species, potentially reducing the number. But even conservative estimates run into tens of thousands of animal pairs.
More comprehensive counts, including insects, arachnids, and other invertebrates, which Genesis doesn't explicitly exclude from creatures that move along the ground, push the number into the millions. Where was the space? Gathering the animals. How did Noah gather animals from every continent? Polar bears from the Arctic, kangaroos from Australia, penguins from Antarctica? Genesis says the animals came to Noah, implying divine intervention, but the logistics remain mind-boggling. Housing, care, imagine the requirements: specialized diets, bamboo for pandas, eucalyptus for koalas, specific insects for others, different environmental needs, temperature, humidity, waste management for millions of creatures in an enclosed space. The ammonia buildup alone would be lethal. Preventing predators from eating prey, disease control in cramped quarters. This would require a level of zoological knowledge and resource management far beyond anything known in the ancient world. The genetic bottleneck. If all species repopulated from single pairs, or 7 pairs for clean animals, the resulting lack of genetic diversity should be evident in modern genomes. While population bottlenecks occur naturally, repopulating the entire planet from such a small starting point presents significant genetic challenges that are not reflected in current biodiversity. From a scientific perspective, the biological challenges of the Ark narrative are perhaps the most difficult to reconcile. While faith relies on the miraculous, an objective investigation must acknowledge that the sheer scale of the zoological undertaking described in Genesis strains credulity without invoking constant, direct, supernatural intervention at every level.
So, after examining the clues, where does our investigation lead? Is Noah's Ark historical fact or legendary myth? The scales of evidence seem heavily weighted against a literal, historical interpretation as described in Genesis. Physical evidence. Decades of searching have yielded no conclusive proof of the Ark's remains on Mount Ararat or elsewhere. The geological record does not support a recent global flood. Scientific feasibility. The engineering and especially the biological logistics of building the Ark and housing all animal life present seemingly insurmountable scientific challenges. However, the investigation also reveals compelling truths within the legend. The power of flood myths. The astonishing prevalence of similar flood stories across disconnected ancient cultures suggests a deep, perhaps historically rooted human experience with catastrophic floods and the theme of survival against overwhelming odds. The Genesis account likely shares roots with, or was influenced by, older Mesopotamian versions. The enduring message, regardless of its literal historicity, the story of Noah's Ark remains one of the most powerful narratives ever told. It speaks to profound themes of judgment and grace, corruption and righteousness, destruction and renewal, obedience and covenant. It offers a timeless message about faith in the face of apocalypse and the promise of a new beginning. Perhaps the question isn't a simple binary, real or myth. Perhaps the truth lies in understanding the purpose of the story. Was it intended as a precise historical or scientific record? Or was it a theological narrative using the potent imagery of a flood, possibly based on real regional disasters, to convey profound truths about the relationship between humanity, creation, and the divine? For the believer, the story stands as a testament to God's power and Noah's faith, regardless of scientific scrutiny. For the investigator, the lack of physical proof and the scientific impossibilities point towards legend, albeit a legend deeply embedded in shared human experience and memory. The investigation remains a mystery. The Ark,
Whether a physical vessel lost to time or a powerful symbol sailing the seas of human consciousness continues to challenge us, inspire us, and force us to confront the biggest questions about our origins, our failings, and our enduring hope for redemption. The search, in many ways, tells us more about ourselves than it does about an ancient wooden boat.